Hello everyone, this is Clint. Welcome to Sweetcast, and I gotta talk about this. I know many other people have, but I've got to talk about it. I want to talk about the storytelling device of putting the same picture, same shot, slight nuances on every single panel on up to, we've got here 4 pages as an example from Tom King. I know that there are other writers, like initially it was a 3-page one that Donnie Cates did, all the same face. I want to talk about this as a storytelling device, why it could be used, and why it should not be used. And so we're gonna get into that, yeah, should be a good time. Before we do though, check out Fatal. It's on Indiegogo right now. We're literally one backer away from hitting $90,000. It's been a whole day like this, and I just cannot stand. One backer gets us to 90K. Everyone gets an upgraded book binding. And yeah, help us get there. The next thing would be 100K, and I've got to think of an awesome 100K stretch goal. I've been talking about patches or something 100K ish. So yeah, back it if you have not yet. It's very appreciated. All right, so get to this really quickly. So in storytelling, let's take a step back for a moment. This is not about writer. This is not about artist. Let's pretend that we're a director for a moment. Now, depending on the creative team, I think usually in mainstream comics, the director role is actually taken on by the writer. I know many artists will say, no, the artist is the director. But when the writer has the vision and they're specifically telling the artist exactly what to do, they take on this director role. Now, a page like 4 pages like this, for example, I highly doubt that the artist was like, yeah, man, let's do what I want to do is 9-panel grids for 4 pages of the exact same shot. I can just copy and paste the background. We'll make this simple. I doubt that would be the case. If you wanted to convey the same material, there could be a different visual way to show it. So let's be generous here, okay? Why would you want to show pages like this? In storytelling of all kinds, contrast is important, and contrast can tell you something important is going on. So if you're reading a comic book and you come to a page where every shot is the same and you're not used to seeing that, it's going to basically force you to look at the slight nuances panel to panel, because you're looking for something. Why? What is the purpose of all of these panels being exactly the same? There's got to be some purpose. And so it can focus your attention as the reader. You're hyper focused on slight nuances and what you're supposed to see about this character. What is it that I'm being shown here by this same panel? Okay, so the problem is that if this device ends up being used too much all at once or too frequently by the same writer, it loses its effect and you actually get the opposite effect. So now you've got to have some action to contrast against your same shot over and over. And so for a good example here, let's take this back to Unbreakable. I love this show. And there's this scene with I can't even remember his name. Elijah, that's it. It's Samuel L. Jackson. Anyway, he's in the comic book shop and he's just staring. Now, M. Night Shyamalan, at the beginning of his career, I think at the pinnacle of his career, sometimes he would use this storytelling direction, this visual direction of keeping the camera in one shot for an uncomfortable amount of time. And what this did is it forced you to look at that character deeply. It forced you to think about what is not on the screen. Again, like if we take this back to comics, you could be thinking about what are they looking at? They're reacting to something. Clearly, this is not it. This is a phone conversation. And so I think that Tom King's goal here was to get you just to look at the words. Just to give you a brief example of a facial expression, the mood, but really get you focused on his writing, which in my opinion is a little strange, but I think, again, we're being generous here. That could be what happened. So in this shot, I'm going to mute it so I don't get in trouble here. But we're going to cut across to the comic book shop owner. He's very small on the screen. He's speaking across the panel. And I think if I look at this, if you're looking at this from Samuel L. Jackson's point of view, this is just a little small man in the big scheme of things that's trying to tell him what to do. He's almost drowned out by the music that's playing across the store. Here, same shot, he gets a little closer. There's a reaction to the fact that he's in a wheelchair. And then he takes a moment, takes a beat to decide, nope, this is still not right. Okay. So here you go. It keeps going, same scene, same exact shot, just slight movement of the camera. So what is this to show us? I'm thinking that this is showing us from Samuel L. Jackson's perspective in a wheelchair, somebody pitying him, somebody scolding him, somebody treating him, speaking down to him. You see how he hunches over. Like there's all of these things that you could be seeing here from Samuel L. Jackson's perspective, who is, spoiler alert, basically an evil genius. Not basically, he is an evil genius. Okay. So you're seeing all that from one perspective. Is this an effective storytelling device? I think so. I think it is. The problem is, M. Night Shyamalan in particular, I have such high hopes for him. I think he's such a good director. He can be so good, but he suffers from the same problem that I think Tom King does sometimes, and that is that he finds something that works and he repeats it to death over and over again. And you'll see the same kind of thing where he has one long camera shot in one location, and it's as if he forgot why he used that, what is to be shown to the viewing audience, by that long camera shot. What is it that he's conveying? And instead he thought, this is what I do. This is my thing. I do long camera shots. And so he just throws them in everywhere. Tom King does the same thing, unfortunately, because if I look up Tom King pages, nothing else, just Tom King pages, what you're going to see is many, many pages of the same kind of thing. Now, I know that he thinks that this is cute storytelling. Here we have basically the same thing here. Same shot, essentially. You're just looking at facial reactions and minute changes. It might have been effective at one point in time. Maybe it was effective. But when you overuse it, it loses its effect. It's no longer a sharp contrast into what people are used to seeing. It then becomes the norm. And that becomes a problem. Here's another one. Again, same shot. Now, I think as comics go, the rule ought to be that first and foremost, you are having dynamic camera angles. I think that should be the broth that you're swimming in, is dynamic camera angles, because they're inherently more interesting. If you choose to change to a static camera angle, that's what you're moving toward, there better be a reason that you're doing it, because that's a moment of contrast for the rest of the book. And it can be a very effective storytelling tool. To go on for 4 pages, no, clearly not. That's too much. But you ought to think, as you're telling stories, why? What would be the best way to show our readers that something has changed, that something is important here? How do we draw their focus onto one thing? Gosh, this is sad. I could just keep going and going and going with these same static images. And my point earlier that I made, that I don't think that this is the artist that's in charge of this. I do think it's Tom King. The fact is that I can look up Tom King pages and you see the same themes running across all of his writing. That's because in his case, he is very much the director of these stories. So let me know what your thoughts are below. Gosh, I could just keep going forever and ever with these rows of static images. I'd like to know your thoughts. Is this an effective storytelling tool? When should it be used? Does it annoy you, or who really cares? Appreciate your comments. Also, don't forget to check out Fatal. It's on Indiegogo right now. And I got to say thank you to everybody also that donated to the GoFundMe. I really appreciate that. And I know that Charlie and his family also really appreciate that. So thank you very much. And I'll see you in the next video.